And we are live. Welcome to Youth Flag Rugby Discussion, a podcast focusing on youth rugby union. Um, though some of us might sit on different boards, we don't represent or speak for any of those bodies. It's basically us hanging around in a virtual pub, discussing rugby, and bringing you the ability to share with us our ramblings and thoughts. And today we have a really special show. We're going to continue our series on opportunities and pathways for youth to play at a higher level. And for that, we've brought in some guests. So let's go ahead and introduce ourselves from the top, just to get a voice to the names, and then we'll go ahead and introduce our guest after. So, Chris.
Hello, my name's Chris Cuddy. I call myself Rugby Dad on this podcast because my days of coaching are wound down. But I've got kids who play rugby in Massachusetts for the Wolfhounds and the Sharks, and have been part of lots of these academies and camps and clinics. So hopefully, I can learn and help the conversation along.
And my name is Daniel Mejia. I coach for the Barbarians Youth Club. And that's it.
My name is Kate McCabe, and I've coached at Boston University Women's Rugby, and then Belmont High School Rugby, as well as some summer stuff as well. So I'm really excited to learn today.
And Shaggy.
Hey, this is Shaggy from South Shore Sharks. I'm also with Myro, and great to be here today.
Skylar, you with us?
Yeah, I'm Skylar, high school rugby player for the Boston Irish Wolfhounds.
Fantastic. And we are joined by Ryszard Chadwick. Rysz, are you there? Can you speak up so we get your voice? We can associate a name to the voice.
Yep. How are we doing, guys? Thanks for having me on.
Fantastic. And as I understand it, I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to change the background so people can see the web page. You have some association with the Northeast Academy, something that we want to hear of from the perspective of, say, a coach or a parent in Massachusetts in the Northeast, as to, hey, what is the Northeast Academy in general, and if there's anything specific that it does for youth players.
Yeah, so I'm the executive director of the Northeast Academy. A bit of background of the Northeast. We've been in inception in 2013, and our focus in 2013 was mainly a concept that USA Rugby created, which was from the top level players at the club level to the national team, World Series kind of level. There's a huge gap between club and country. And so one of the things that we are working on is how do we close that gap? And we close that gap with the academies. So one of the reasons why the Northeast Academy was created is to help develop the top level players in the area, get to Chula Vista, get to the USA Rugby standard before they actually get to USA Rugby. From that, we've evolved in many different ways. We created a women's program in 2015-16. We've included a couple of high school, tours and tournaments throughout the time. And now we're really starting to evolve and really looking at what we can do for the community. So we've got kind of like a triad, a three-pronged approach to development in the Northeast. One of them being the elite talent identification and improvement of performance. We have our community outreach where that will be working with clubs and coaches to improve just the quality of the product that you guys are delivering, but then also the exposure for different players. And then also coach education, where we can help, whether it's youth coaches, whether it's college coaches, or whether it's performance coaches, increase their knowledge base, game understanding, and also the hows and the whats of coaching as well.
Well, that's exciting. It's exciting that it's a resource, both for players, but as as a coach, you mentioned that it's a resource also. You're there also to be able to help the coaches themselves. Is that true?
Correct. Yes. So we typically have done that through shadowing programs. But what we've started to do this year, we launched our first coach development program online, and that's a year-round program. So typically with coach development, what you get is you show up to a class, you're there for 6 to 8 hours, then you go home with a certification or something, and there's no real follow-up. What we've done is we've created this program where it's a year-round program where the players or the coaches are able to join these conversations. And it's very similar to this, but we have very specific topics that we're talking about that will increase any kind of program out there. And so it's a tight knit group. People are very open of sharing ideas, and but what we have is a direction where we're going, where we can actually work towards working on the field, as well as then coming back and reporting back on how you did and how you found it and what things you can take from other people, versus the typical coach education course, which is you show up for one day and then that's it.
That's exciting. Now, again, this is this is supposed to be a youth focused show, but in truth, it's really a coach focused show. We serve the youth by being able to serve the coaches. So I want to stay with this a little bit more. I want to hear a little bit more about this because I'm not sure that I was aware about this at all. Folks, did anybody know that this is a resource, that this was there, that I as a coach, you as a coach could go and do some of this sort of coach the coaches, and anybody, was anybody aware of this?
One thing I'll say about this, Daniel, is that it seems like right around the time that Rish took over as executive director, like it seemed like there was a switch around this time where I saw more and more from the Facebook feed from Northeast Academy that it was some sort of like coaching development, or there's going to be a clinic for young athletes, but it's also going to be a coaching clinic, and then there was going to be a coaching series. So yeah, the information's been. I think Northeast Academy has done a good job of pushing it out to us through Facebook if you follow them on Facebook. But yeah, I could see how you wouldn't hear about it, and I'd love to hear more.
Yeah, I mean, I can talk to that as well. So, when I first took over, we had a very limited staff members in terms of what we could actually do, and so over the last 2.5 years, we've created an incredible staff now. So we've now got 18 staff members where we're all working together. One of those is a communications and digital media manager. And so what she's able to do now is all the ideas that we have, she's able to actually push that out in a way that we couldn't do before, because I don't know much about social media apart from you just post it and then that's it. So that's why our website's getting completely revamped. All of our communication is going to be changing to a much more professional and positive approach, so we can share more things like this.
One thing I noticed about this, Rish, and it might be interesting to hear a little bit, is there seems to be a lot of the information that's coming out has to do with Empire Rugby, and it's sort of there's this New York cluster, and then there's a Eastern New England cluster as well, and I don't know if it's worth talking about the way that the organization works, how you're able to sort of how we are able to leverage what's going on in New York. But again, one thing that I notice is a lot of the things that they're in New York, and we might not be able to make it, or maybe I'm underestimating our ability to head out to New York and take advantage of some of these opportunities.
Yeah, it's interesting, right? So back in 2013, when we first started, it was very much New York, because of the top level clubs in New York, and then obviously you've got so Nyack and Old Blue, and then you've also got Mystic up in the Boston area. And so what typically happened was the training environments were New York and Boston based. And what we've started to do is spread that around a lot more. So it was very much happening in New York. It was happening up at Mystic. But typically what we do with our elite players is we now meet halfway in Connecticut. And what we'll do is we'll do our elite training sessions in Connecticut. But we're also now spreading out a lot more in terms of we'll go up to Massachusetts and we'll do some clinics and we'll do some camps up there. And it's actually now a lot of our focus is now based in the Massachusetts area. So that's probably good news for you guys.
I'd say so.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's great to know. So let's follow that thread a little bit. So I'm in Massachusetts, whether I'm a youth player or whether I'm a coach. Let's maybe talk about a year ago and then also talk about now. And what I mean by that is a year ago, there was no COVID. We were not in lockdown. Everybody was firing on all cylinders. So what are the opportunities? What are the things that are available to me through you if there was no COVID? And then kind of reel it in and let's be a little bit more realistic. And what is available right now? Does that question make sense?
Yep. Yeah. So we typically last year we had our elite players from all the clubs that come to a Northeast Academy practice at the U18 level, and we would offer a 6 to 8 week program where we would train and coach as many kids that wanted to show up as possible, and we developed them so kids from all over the area would come together and we coach them. From that, what we do is we cut the training squad down to a group of about 18 players that wanted to compete in tournaments, and then we take those kids on tournaments. That being said, what we found is that that's fine if you've got the ability to travel to those venues. That's fine if you've got the parents who are willing to maybe pay for the services, and that's fine if you've got the time to do that. And so what we're going to be doing this year, and we've brought on 2 brilliant people to help us with this as our community development directors in Devon. I can't pronounce her last name, Diandio, something like that, and Ryan Grant. And so their roles are specifically looked at the community and how we can develop the community. And so we're going to be sending out players, we're going to be sending out coaches to these communities. So, for example, we have a list of products that we're going to be providing. One of them is guest coaching, where sessions are offered to individuals or teams of clubs, where a coach is brought into their venue and delivers a session of 1 to 2 hours. So, if you run a high school, for example, you would be able to contact the Northeast and say, hey, can you come in and give a guest session on attack or catch pass, for example? And we can provide a coach that comes in and runs a really high level session so that either the coaches can learn from and the players just hear all the same information from a different voice, which normally works wonders. We come into a session and we say the same things that coaches have been saying for years and years, and the kids get it straight away. And then the coach rolls their eyes and thinks, well, oh, brilliant. I've been saying this, but you guys don't listen to me. That's just one of the unfortunate things of being a day-to-day educator. We will do player clinics where we have, the players will come towards our session. So, for an example, a collegiate conference team provides a 2-hour session where anybody in that conference can come to those sessions, and the people within the conferences themselves can start to build a community away from their general competition. So everybody is trying to improve their skill sets. Player clinics where we put on our normal programming, like I talked about last year in the fall, where players will come and they'll get what skills they need, what education they need, and then they'll go back to their clubs. And then maybe they'll get some, maybe they're lucky enough to get a place on tour or to a trip somewhere else. And then also training camps and combines. So really looking at, okay, if you're a 16-year-old, what physical attributes are USA Rugby looking for right now to then have you on the pathway to go and represent in LA 28 Olympics? And so, to start measuring these players at 14, 16, 18 years old, how can we start that development process really early and keep them on a path where they're going to keep developing so they hopefully one day represent their country?
That's
Wow,
awesome, Rich.
what a dream, huh? What a dream that one, that's a possibility, and two, that there's a pathway to actually be able to do that. Chris, is that where you're going with that?
No,
Oh yeah. Go ahead.
I'm sorry. No, this is Shaggy. You know, no, I mean that's unbelievable. I mean, just following up on that, the connections that we're making, in the individual clubs to their academies, Northeast Academy, and giving the kids those pathway forwards are just invaluable. And knowing that that's out there is just it makes the world like complete as a youth coach administrator. But just a quick question, Rish. So have you noticed the player base? Is it predominantly club players, or are you drawing like equal MIAA players into the academy, or do you not know where they're coming from predominantly?
Is the MIAA the school system?
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, we don't discriminate.
Oh, no.
No, I think it's predominantly, club players. I mean, I'd have to speak to the coaches who know a bit more about that, but I think it's more the club. What we haven't done is, like I said, we have about 40 kids show up to these things, male and female. But what we want to do is we want to go to where the rugby is, as well as provide where the rugby isn't. So we can show up at a school who maybe has just started playing rugby for, a 6-month period. There may be an incredible athlete there that just completely we don't see because they don't know about us.
Right.
So,
And that's kind of why I ask, because the way I picture rugby in Massachusetts is the club teams. They are tour minded, and MIAA is very much, they're just stuck. They're just focused on Massachusetts, and they're not connecting to those outlets.
So let's do this, Shaggy. That's a really good point. So let's punt this to Kate. So Kate McCabe, are you there? Can you give us a little bit about what you do, where you're from, who you present?
Sure. I'm currently coaching the Belmont High School girls rugby program. And I can say I've had a number of girls that have gone into the Northeast Academy high school team for the all 7 session that culminates with the New York Sevens tournament. And I will say, at least on the girls' side, primarily because with the exception of Boston Women's and the South Shore Sharks last season, there's not a lot of girls' sevens programs in Massachusetts. Yes,
So let me ask you, Kate. So it sounds like so you were able to take advantage of this. How did you hear that this existed? What did Rish do right, or what did you do right in order to be able to take advantage of this pathway?
First of all, I think like Northeast Academy does, from my perspective, a really good job of like identifying coaches that are tapped into, in particular, the high school programs that already exist. So TC with Mystic, but he coaches at St. John's Prep in the high school program for the boys, and Amy Beth Scandarian, who coaches with Lincoln Sudbury for the girls. Those are the Massachusetts points for the youth program. And they do a really good job of reaching out to all those high school programs. So, for example, I work very closely with the Belmont High School coach as well, Greg, the boys coach. And so we've both every year had multiple kids from our programs that that try out, that go to all the clinics, and that get selected for ultimate competition.
So what is Rish doing? What is the academy doing well that is making sure that you are well informed? Because if you're not well informed, you're not going to be able to point your players in that direction, right? You're not going to be able to point the families in that direction. So what did you say
Well, I think
they
what
did
I'm
well?
saying is the earlier point that someone made about like if you're not following them on Facebook, you might not be connected. But I guess my second point was really that like we've identified people as like leaders
Okay.
in the academy that are already well connected to high school programs in Massachusetts, and so they're actually doing that groundswell like promotion, and it's not just who I don't know very well. It's now Amy Beth, who I see all the time, right? Like that's the person who's reaching out to me, so I trust sending my kids there because I know her.
And I just want to say that's super important because my point was the MIAA structure, in and of its structure of itself, is very closed. So having those leaders in place, they're able to direct the kids to the academies are super important.
Beyond that, I also think the MIAA doesn't exist in a vacuum. Like, I'm a product of Boston women's rugby, and there are Boston women's rugby players that are in the women's division. So I get that information through that too. And the same is true with the men's programs, right? That those coaches oftentimes played for area men's programs. And if those men's clubs in the Northeast are sending their adult players to Northeast Academy, that's also spreading awareness.
Right.
So let me punt another question to you, Kate. So it sounds like the academy and Rich are doing a good job in reaching out. So let's say Ty Daniel Bayou Wow, community development
Right.
manager. There's also Mark Downs and Austin Ryan. I'm looking at the webpage, so that's where I'm taking this information. Lawrence Fry. It sounds like they've been doing a good job about reaching out to these to these channels to ensure that everybody is well informed. Are you able to identify something that perhaps they've missed, that perhaps maybe not not in a bad way, but that they could put more energy into to be able to get their message out even further?
Well, I can speak to that.
Oh, okay, cool.
If there's anything that I like talking about, it's my weaknesses. And what we've tried to do is, because the Northeast is such a huge area, and because everybody is looking for content and new resources and educational snippets and information where they can get things or resources or whatever it is. A lot of the time we look at USA Rugby for that kind of thing, and the reality is USA Rugby don't have that bandwidth to serve everybody all the time. I think USA Rugby do an incredible job of what they do. They just need another couple 100 million to be able to serve the country the way they probably want to. So what we've decided is that, and I'm going to talk about Chris's point here about the National Development Program certification. USA Rugby have come out with this new certification around what does a high performance national development program look like. And the reason for that is because they want to be able to show the public and the community that they trust this program, and this program is going to help develop your players. So there's a lot of academies floating around the country that are not really academies, because you show up for a tournament and then you disappear and there's no development. And if you can't, maybe you can't pay the plane fee or the travel fee or whatever it is, what happens is they go to a tournament and then they disappear, and then you never see them again. What these national development programs are going to do is really to everybody else's, so everyone's working towards a common goal. That certification process is very, very intense. It is a load of paperwork. It's a load of planning. It's a load of understanding of how to develop a pathway, how to develop coaches, how to develop a program which is supplemental to the clubs, the schools, the colleges, the other programs in the areas. And so what this is doing is opened our eyes in terms of, well, we need to be able to track these players younger. We need to start developing these players younger. And this is why we've started to bring on our academy directors and managers, is because we need people in the areas, who know the coaches, who know the players, to then start to work with those coaches, those players, those programs. So we can't always go have players come to us, but we can certainly go out to them. So these combines, these clinics, these camps that we're going to put on, and then even like the guest coaching, we can go in and identify and spot players that have that potential. So these people will be running programs and really trying to develop the community, because if we can develop the community, we can then start to identify these players younger and younger and younger, which is what USA Rugby want to happen. Because if we're looking at, LA 28, we need to be looking at 14 to 16-year-olds now. And in the past, the Northeast Academy hasn't done that because that wasn't part of our mission. So our mission and our vision is changing. Right now with the men, we won't really accept anybody who's over the age of 23. Because if they're over the age of 23, then the MLR should be taking hold of those players and developing them. But we need to get them to MLR standard. On the women's elite side, it's probably a little bit older. 25 is probably our cutoff, unless you're somebody like Dee Nash, who just wants to keep going and going, and she adds value to younger players. But then we're really looking at those performance levels and that development structure from the ages of 15 to 18 right now, or we will be come post-COVID.
I just want to jump in and say that sounds amazing. I know from my perspective, for the high school players, that clinic series doesn't start until I think September. It goes through September and October, and then there's that selection piece. And I know that I sent over 20 girls to that, and just for the experience of playing, just being like, hey, you played one season of 15s, you've never played sevens, go play more rugby, go learn about sevens, go do this thing. You won't get selected. That's not the point, right? And if there were a way to have like a varsity and a JV, or like an older crew and a younger crew that was competing, I know that there would be girls that would show up for that at the age of 14, having played one season, and I'm sure that the same could be said for boys. It just doesn't, that infrastructure doesn't exist yet, but I know the interest is there.
Yeah, and I think that's a really good point, right? So we have at the what we call our elite level, we have basically our alpha pack, because our mascot is a wolf. So we talk about our alpha pack, we talk about our beta pack, we also talk about our alpha cubs. And the alpha cubs are kind of like that 21-year-old age group. However, saying that, because we are expanding and because our focuses are changing, one of the things that we haven't had before is the ability to provide those opportunities, because we haven't had the resources, whether it's finances or coaches. But what I'm starting to work on and really, really focus on is, how do we build the community and bring people like yourself, Kate, in to be involved in the academy to provide those opportunities. This is great for me, because I can start to learn about you guys, what your guys' missions are, and how you see the game, and say, hey, well, we might have openings at the academy. Who wants to join? Because we're very open to really developing the community and making the Northeast a real hotbed of rugby talent. But we can't do that on our own, and we need people to help with that. So yeah, let's talk about that if we want.
Let's talk about that. Now, maybe that's something that you're saying, and you're saying rhetorically, meaning that you're going to go back and you need to think hard on that. But is there something that the community can do, or is there something that we can think of right now that we're talking that would make that bridge that would be able to get you to the next step? Grish, does that make sense?
Yeah. So one of the things that I'm really passionate about is what are the reasons why people are doing what they do. Um, Too many times I've seen people come in and out of academies, clubs, whatever it is, asking for a position or a title because of the status, and then not actually putting the work in off
Right.
the field, putting the
Right,
work
but
in on the field.
as you know, and I'm cutting you off because I'm trying to keep this conversational. I know where you're going with this. It's not That's never going to go anywhere, right? I think it's the passion, right? Is that what you're going for?
Yeah. So and one of the things that I'm talking about here is with this coach development program, which lasts a year. That kind of, it was like a vetting process of, right, who
Hmm.
can we bring in straight away, um, immediately, who is committed to what they're doing. So after 6 months of the program, I had a pretty good idea who I wanted to bring in. And so for me, it's like, well, how do we, because we can have passionate people and they can be, they're not very confident, or we can have confident people who aren't very passionate, and it's finding the balance. And so, how do we have people who are passionate, and how can we upskill them and develop them as well? Because we are a development academy, and so we want to help people, and we want to put people in environments where they can grow and flourish, both players and staff. Um, but also, who are the people who are in it for the long haul and in it for the right reasons, not just to maybe see their son or daughter get to the next level and then disappear, or have something to put on their resume to get to maybe a full-time college job or something like that. Who's actually in it to develop the game, and who's actually in it to develop the players?
So, are you talking about bringing people into the Northeast Academy to be part of the staff there, or are you talking about players? Are you talking about both? Or are you talking about interested coaches that help promote Northeast Academy and feed you not only information and players, but also sort of best practices in a way to make you stronger in the community?
Yeah. So Kate talked about TC, right? So
Hmm.
his passion and love for the game, and what he does. He's in Tufts. He's at Mystic. He's with the Northeast. Like, he does so much. Um, what's his end game? His end game is to develop the sport and develop the players within it, and he absolutely loves it. People like that who are really, really passionate about growth and development of people, and the game is what we're looking for. But also people who are in it to help other people develop and flourish as well. Um, if that kind of makes sense.
Can I just circle back to I wrote it down and I was going to come back afterwards and say this, but I did actually see, and I'm in a I saw your post about or not your post, but Northeast Academy's post about the coaching um, coursework over the course of a year. And I was intrigued, and I'm actually in like a cohort of boys and girls high school coaches. So we're, we work together and do skills clinics, and we were all kind of talking about it. And it was just like an unknown for me as a like there was like a, hey, we're doing this, but there was no, personally, I just didn't know what that looked like. There were no dates. I didn't know if it was online or in person. It was like, it's going to happen sporadically in the future. So I'm like hearing more information about it. I'm like, oh, I kind of wish I had put something in, because I didn't know what that looked like. And I think that's a piece that what you're talking about is creating a coaching cohort over the course of a year. And that sounds fantastic. I bet a lot of people would be really intrigued by that.
Yeah, and I think that's a really good comment, because we had a few people inquiring about that. It was like there was no date; it was very mysterious.
Yeah.
And that was done. That was done actually on purpose, because I wanted to see who actually wanted to take the initiative to follow up and really question it and really get into it. And then the other thing was as well is that a lot of the time coaches want things for free. We want coach education to be free, because for some reason in rugby we're very generous, and this is not, the Northeast isn't something that we're able to do for free, because all the funding that we did have, we've now lost, and so we have to find ways to, replenish the funds that we've lost and keep the program going. And we have to find out ways where we can do that and benefit people at the same time.
Well, you know
So
what? Yeah, and just tying into what you're saying about, for free, there's many reasons why you don't want to do things for free. So if you've been an administrator, and I know everybody here's been an administrator, even if it's for like, let's go have fun and it's going to be for free, you're going to have 100 people from your club, your organization, your family raise their hands and say, yeah, I'll do it for free. Come the day of whatever free activity you're going to do for fun, to enrich them for whatever reason it is, whatever it is that you're trying to do, two people show up. So even if you can do it for free, I think it's pretty much across the board understood that you're going to charge them a nominal fee, $5, $10, $20, because if they've already been, if they've already put some money into it, they'll show up. So I completely understand. I completely it's a pity that you can't do it for free. But even if you were able to do it for free, I would feel a lot more comfortable hearing you say, and we're gonna we're gonna charge a nominal fee to be able to do this amazing thing to push, this fantastic agenda. So Kate, from your perspective, and also as you said, you have contact and you have camaraderie with a group of coaches that I think would benefit from being able to participate in this year-round thing. What's your thought to hearing that this is available now, and the nominal fee was reaching out and saying, hey, how much does this cost? Is this still available? Is that good?
I would just say, I mean, like, just to be fair, the money is never a thing. Like, anyone who's probably on this knows that we all sink our own money into our own teams. Like, it's not, I will put money into rugby all day long.
Yeah.
But it is sometimes knowing what you're signing up for, particularly when I'm a coach of multiple teams. If I don't know that I can be at all of those things, like if I don't know what the program looks like and that I can commit to it, then I struggle with saying, okay, I'm gonna sign up for this. Does that make sense? And this is the benefit of this conversation, Rish, is that I'm listening to you and I'm like, oh, I should have just followed up and asked more questions. So hopefully people are going to hear this and be like, oh, we want to do this now.
Also, let's not worry about it, because this was kind of like our pilot. We've not done this before. A lot of it was designed to be online before COVID hit anyway, because of where everybody lives and the proximity of everybody. We were going to invite everybody who was on that coach education course to come and shadow and maybe do a little bit of coaching with our elite players. But what we've figured out now is that we have the ability to do multiple programs at the same time. So it could be, we could be creating one which is specifically at youth coaches. It could be one specifically for male coaches, in terms of people coaching males. It could be one specifically for people coaching female players. It could be one on set piece. It could be one around attack. It could be one about pedagogy. We're working on ways that we can provide those courses and that education in a much more in-depth way, where people can either, sign on and watch a video of somebody talking about an attacking system and pay, $5 for it. Okay, that's fine. Or we can do a lot more an in-depth one-on-one kind of coach development, mentor kind of program. So we have our options that we're working towards. It's just going to take some time to get us there, because this is all brand new to us in terms of the platforms and the getting that message out there.
Awesome. It sounds great.
On that note, Rish, I was going to ask earlier. We're in a lull right now, and our expectations aren't terribly high on much happening in 2020. But do you have an estimation about when when this transformation that NEA seems to be going through at the youth level is gonna take effect? Are you looking at the beginning of 2021 where you might be, or is that too optimistic, or otherwise? Do you have a timetable?
No, I mean we're working towards making sure that our programming and what we're trying to offer people is buttoned up. So we're actually aiming for September
Wow.
to get that all buttoned up and ready to go, just in case people are, something happens and all of a sudden COVID disappears and everyone's back to normal,
That'd be nice.
which is probably unlikely. But what we will be doing is starting to run combines because these combines that we can run can be done social distance combines. We can do some sort of skill development. So we will be trying to put on some camps at the end of the summer, some combines, and then kind of take it from there. But yeah, 2021, we should be completely up and running and doing everything that we can to try and get these players in.
Oh, great point. And this is a good spot for me to bring back up what you're talking about, this, like, the athletic performance. There was a couple questions I wanted to ask when you started to bring up this idea, this really exciting idea that you might be on the lookout for athletes, that are at age 14 or age 16. Maybe they're underdeveloped when it comes to rugby skills, but they have they have a special talent, and that you'd be looking at some sort of athletic performance data to help identify these folks. And this is one of the sort of pet peeves that I have when we are when I talk to other coaches and I ask them, hey, why didn't you put anybody out for the RCTs? Why didn't you nominate any players? Why didn't they see anybody from your school or your team at the RCTs? And they said, well, I didn't think there was anybody that's good enough, right? But they don't know because there's not benchmarks. Some of them might not know that somebody who has a vertical jump of a certain height, or a broad jump, or a 40 time, or I'm not sure what information that you might be looking for or USA might be looking for. So I'm really hopeful that you might be able to help us bridge the gap in identifying sort of freak athletes or otherwise high performing athletes with rugby skills, or maybe with raw talent like Christy Kershaw was just a couple of years ago at Northeast Academy. I'm really hopeful about that, and I wonder if maybe you could talk a little bit about it and ways that you might be able to help us identify high performers. And is that what you were talking about when you're talking about combines?
Yeah, so I think straight away there's two types of player, right? There's the rugby player who isn't athletic, and we can work with those rugby players and that athletic ability over a 10-year period, or you've got those athletes who are not rugby players, and so someone like Christy Kirsch was not a rugby player, but clearly an athlete, and not just an athlete, someone who had just an intuition of sports. So that crossover kind of mindset of, well, she's played soccer and she's played football. And then the first training session that she came to with the Northeast, it was kind of within a 2-minute warm up with a tennis ball. It was like, yeah, you're the best athlete here, easily, by far. And so, looking at those athletes, I mean, I can read you something I got from USA Rugby today. The physical ability, they're looking for somebody, at least from the female side, they're looking at somebody who's over 5'8" in height, ideally looking for 6 foot plus athletes. They're looking for a sub 5'5" 40-meter sprint and a sub 1.8 10-meter sprint, as an example. Right. So,
perfect.
Can we start to test players younger? Yes. Is it going to be strictly accurate? No. Because we can look at the Australian model in the Sydney 2000 Olympics, where they were testing kids at 7, 8 years old and saying, right, you're going to be a rower, you're going to be a sprinter. Rugby's not kind of that game. Your maturation, can happen at 18 years old, and all of a sudden you become a unit, and bang, there we go. Or you can be a unit at 18 years old. At 14 years old, and then underdevelop in the rugby IQ kind of way. So identifying at that young age is difficult, but what we can do is start to give people opportunities to show what they have. Because you might have, I find this a lot. So a smaller player who's got kind of that, what we'd call that small person syndrome, they just fight at everything and they just want to compete at everything. They probably have a really good rugby IQ and a really good skill set because they're not able to go into contact because they'll get beaten up. Well, that's somebody that we can look at and go, right, well, you've got the ability to be a playmaker. You've got the ability to be a 9, a 10, a fly half. What can you be doing outside of your general rugby practices to increase your skill set, your rugby IQ? On the flip side, if we've got someone who's a real athlete, great, that's incredible. How can we make you a rugby player now? And so if we can identify that early on, 14, 15, 16, 17 years old, we then give those players the opportunity to really start to push towards their development.
Yeah, great. Yeah, that's exactly the type of thing we're looking to hear. And I do kind of agree that this might be transformational for USA Rugby, who sort of had blinders on to the under 16 level until now. And it'd be great to get some folks maybe to get some opportunity for some higher level training at the younger ages.
Also, I'm not sure blinders is the right word. I think just because a lot of the programs that offer that kind of thing, it's very much a expensive pay to play program. So they would have. I'm on the USA national team pathway coaching staff as well, and we have camps from the 26th of December through to the 1st of January in Chula Vista in San Diego. And so you're asking parents to fly their kids out after Christmas and be away from their family at Christmas time. Also, flying at New Year and Christmas is a really expensive time to fly. Yeah, this is where we put our camp. So what we're aiming to do is, again, instead of them flying out to us, we can go to them. And I think that will give us a lot more understanding of what our pool of athletes look like. And it will also give more opportunities to people versus, hey, well, if you can't fly, you're not going to be seen.
Great.
Just to add something to that conversation a little bit is that it's not, part of me feels like it's not really fair in some ways to place that on USA Rugby, and please challenge that thought. But like, there's no way to get that tremendous, there's no way to get a Christy Kershey in high school if there's no rugby program for her at a local level. Like, there's no way that she's going to know in Franklin, Massachusetts, to look at, rugby as a possible venue if those like local programs don't exist in Massachusetts, and then simultaneously pull her out of soccer and lacrosse and whatever else she's playing at that high school level, right? Like, those kids aren't accessible unless there are adults that like introduce them to rugby at that age.
Okay, that's a great point. And so I talked about combines. We're going to have combines. We're going to have combines for rugby players. Yes, that's great. But one of the reasons why we're going to be doing combines is because we're going to then start to advertise to hockey players, to soccer players, to all these different crossover sports, where we can then bring these players, these other sport players in. We can test them. We can look at them. We can get that contact information from them. And also we can provide an opportunity for coaches, maybe running clubs or schools, that can come and see these players and maybe go, hey, you want to stop playing football? Come and play rugby. So that's something that we are going to be working on as well.
And I guess it goes without saying, like, to point out the fact that you're right. There's a lot of non-rugby players that are peak performers, that are excellent athletes, and we have examples in yes, Australia 15s, Australia 7s, USA men's 7s, every country. But we do have youth rugby in Massachusetts. So the one thing that I'm hearing here that I do not do at my level. Now, my level is fourth, fifth, sixth, and sixth grade. So we're talking about 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 10 to 12 years old. A little bit early, perhaps, but there are clubs around Massachusetts that have high school and middle school. Um, should we be not only paying attention to that wily, greasy player that is just has an incredible rugby presence, but perhaps also to the very athletic player? Should we be keeping in the back of our mind certain metrics. And again, I don't want to take anything away from the programs that we have. I don't want to say that we're tracking kids in any way whatsoever. And somebody correct me if I'm wrong. Maybe tracking is actually a good thing. But I, as a coach of a youth player that hasn't reached high school yet, hasn't reached that 14, 15, 16-year-old age, should I be keeping something in back of my head that just sets off a bell and says, I need to go talk to that parent, or I need to go talk to Rish so that he reaches out to that parent? Does that make
What I would
sense?
say, yeah, what I would say is that um, one of the biggest reasons why kids drop out of sport is because they're pushed too hard from whether it's parents or coaches, and unfortunately, a lot of the time we focus on performance before we focus on learning, education, fun, and staying in the game. And one of the reasons we're all on this call is because we were able to stay in the game because we love it. What we don't want to do is scare kids off by putting too much pressure on them and saying, hey, look, you need to be focusing on your sprint speed. You need to be focusing on your Bronco score and all this kind of stuff. Leave that to the aggressive, nasty, high performance Northeast Academy people who can play the mean people, and you guys stay as the fun, the energetic, the we're here for a reason. We're here to have fun. We're here to connect with other people. We're here to learn, and then we can come in and do that kind of, hey, well, look, we're going to test you all, and they'll be like, oh, well, okay, fine, but they don't. It's not a daily thing for them, if that makes sense.
So am I hearing that we should be reaching out to you guys and inviting you over into our well-established teams of multiple sides, multiple age groups, in order for you to be able to do some of these assessments?
Yeah, so you could have a standout player, and you could reach out to, like, let's say me, for example. You could reach out to me and say, "Hey, Rish, can you guys come and have a look at this player? We think he's got something, or she's got something." Cool. Okay, so we'll send our coaches down. Okay, yeah, they've got a really good ability to see the game. Their vision's really good. Um, let's keep an eye on him. So, what's his name? What position does he play? Where's his school? All that kind of stuff. And when we put out a combine, that's someone that we're going to be looking at to be there. So it can be like okay, let's not everybody nominates 5 of their top players. That goes to a combine. Great. So now we've got what we have is the top 5 players in each program. We've got 25 players now. Okay, well, who's the top 5 of this? Who can we push on to that next level, kind of thing? But I don't think we want to lose sight of the fact that youth rugby is youth rugby because it's fun, enjoyable. It's a good community. You make lifelong friends from it. You learn so much about it. Yes, we want to see people excel and exceed our expectations, but we also don't want to create an environment of, oh, I don't want to go today because it's fitness testing, or I don't want to go to rugby today because I'm not good enough. We still want to have that foundation where people love the game. And that's one of the reasons why we all stay in it, I think, is because the game's provided so much to us that we want to be able to help that and give that back to the game as well.
And and
I've,
I
I've,
and I need to completely highlight what you just said, because I think one thing that we've been talking over and over again is that our role as coaches for these age groups is to instill a love of the sport, a camaraderie of each other in other teams, not just ourselves, but to pass on the rugby spirit as best as we can. And our rule of thumb, our number one prime directive, is keep it fun. I think if you listen to any of the past shows that we've had over and over and over, that's in there. So I can't thank you enough for making sure that you voice that in making sure that there's a really strong, good balance, and that my job, or our job as youth coaches for the local club, is to have a healthy environment, a fun environment. Um, with that said, as we continue to grow the sport, I like also what you said about being able to call upon you to bring you in when we feel, or to coordinate with you to be able to have, some of these sessions where you have just a small group of players that perhaps are interested in taking their rugby to the next stage. And you mentioned, I think we were talking about, or we were envisioning it as a practice. Now, I see the practice and I raise you a jamboree. And what I mean by that is it's our practice, it's our culture at the youth level that when we play other teams, we don't play just one other team. We bring all the hordes together, and it's a full day event with lots and lots and lots of players. Would there be any value for you for when we have, Shaggy? What do you call your jamboree? What's your jamboree called?
The Marsh Vegas Sevens.
The Marsh Vegas Sevens. And how many teams show up to the Marsh Vegas Sevens?
All of them. Then people make
Oh,
teams.
yeah, you're right. And then we even make some more. So, um, Rish, how valuable would be for you if, as we keep in mind what our role is, but we also strive to make rugby better, to pull together some of the players from all the different teams, so that instead of looking at one or two or three, perhaps you're looking at five, six, or 12 players that want to bring it to the next level. And, somebody from your organization might come and, run a bleep test on them, or something to be able to assess, are they the type of player that would benefit from your program? Is that of any value to you?
Yeah, I think if we can get to a situation where maybe there's like a 6 week season and you guys have got 5 tournaments or jamborees as you call them, but we can come out and spot these places, spot these players. Sorry,
Yep.
we can spot these players and we can say, right, we can identify maybe what we think are let's say the top 15, top 20 players out of all the teams. We can compare that with all the other coaches because we can just see it from one point of view, which is competition. But you guys may think, right, well, actually, this person deserves to come in because they're the hardest trainer. So they need to have a shot as well, or they're just having a bad day at the office, or whatever it is. And then what you can do from that is you can go, right, well, we'll have an all-star game. Trying to use American language here. We'll have an all-star game where we can play the top 20 and we can play a 10 on 10, for example, against each other and see who shows up from that. So it's almost like you can create a tier within the jamboree and say, right, let's nominate the top players for whether it's sportsmanship, whether it's performance, whether it's athletic ability, whether it's work ethic, and then maybe after the final, or if I don't know how you run them, but maybe after the final we can put one of them together, or we can run that on a different weekend or a different day where we invite those certain players and we get them to come.
Yeah, it would have to be on the same day, and it would have to be sort of an exhibition team at the very end, and it would be sort of a mini select side versus a mini select side. Shaggy, you're a tournament runner. How feasible do you think it is, with the help of all the other coaches,
But
to be able to?
everything everything's always chaos, but that sounds like it'd be fun for the kids just to have like you know, just to have like a special all-star game with Northeast Academy, just
Yeah,
branding it for that one time.
absolutely,
I think that'd be a cool promotion, fun for the kids, and just good
absolutely.
visibility for the academy. So, and another game, so that's always good.
Absolutely. I mean, if we were able to have an all girls team pulled together from the different teams to be able to, have an extra game and participate, I think that shouldn't be too difficult to do. So that might be something that, Rich, is that if that's, truly something that'll help you out, um, we as coaches can definitely, on the floor, or, boots on the ground, rubber meets the pavement, organize to have something like that and just give you a call and have one of your, coaches come out and take a look. Because I think that just sounds like it's a healthy thing all around. Rich, does that make sense? Is there any way you'd like to refine that so that it's even more useful to you?
No, I think that's a great idea. So I think straight away I can tell that this community of coaches doesn't really hold any egos in terms of their programs or their um, what they want to achieve as a coach. It seems as though everybody is aligned in wanting everybody to have the best experience and wants everybody to get better. And if you can create a level of performance within your own environment, that's a really cool thing to do, because then it actually gives the players something to strive towards as well, versus just winning a cup or a medal or something extrinsic. Now you've got an intrinsic drive and motivator to say, hey, I want to be on this team. How can I get on that team? So that will just raise the level of competition, raise the standards for everybody, and especially if you can reward, maybe it's like I said, a performance-based criteria of, this is why you get on this team. But I also think rewarding sportsmanship and positive behaviors goes a long way with that kind of thing as well.
Yeah, that's a difficult one. I think the softer skills that a coach needs to have in order to, as you said, um, prop up the player that's not the most athletic, that's not the most rugby aware, but that just has great spirit. They're there for the friends. And every good club, every healthy club out there has a number of these participants. They're there just for the social aspect of it, and they will put in 100% of their physicality so that they can be there for the social aspect of it. And in a very real way, they're kind of the mortar that holds a lot of the different pieces together. Um, that's an interesting way that because for the gifted players, or the players that are just very aware, it's very easy to quantify and qualify, and also um, choose them for a select side like this. For the players that aren't so much, I think it's more of a coach's art to be able to give them the recognition and the props and kind of what they need in order to be able to keep them in the sport and enjoy what they do. So yeah, you're right. The balance of it all is very important. I think it's a big part of the rugby ethos. So what I've been talking about kind of fits very well in the structure of the Sevens youth, and perhaps doing something to be able to facilitate Northeast Academy coming in, to be able to assess some of these players. Kate, I'll be honest, I'm not really sure how your part of the world works. Is there something that can be done from your side to make it easier to facilitate to have Northeast Academy come to an event of yours? Where am I just completely off the mark here?
I think that there's like multiple levels to that in some ways. So sorry, this is now at the high school level.
Yep.
Because number one, for a lot of high school teams, the competitive season is in the spring, and that's all 15s. And so I don't think you're going to see a lot of coaches. I mean, with some extra time, we do play some sevens for fun with my team, but that's legitimate. I mean, that's never something that we're competing at. And then there's a difference between the boys and the girls in terms of like the offering for sevens over the summer. But that summertime is also, I think, a time when a lot of like elite sevens rugby is happening. So I'm excited to see that there's like a broadening or a branching out of more NEA coaches or administrators that might be available over the summer season to look at the high school boys programs, because they have a full robust circuit. And there might be something where at the end, what's that called? Tournament, the last tournament, not Beanpot.
You're talking about in sevens?
Yeah.
Bay State games.
The base, Skylar, say
Bay
it
State
again.
games. Yeah,
Skylar, say
thank
it
you.
again. Yeah, because Skylar's a
Bay
participant.
State games.
Yes.
Yeah.
That might be a thing where, like at the Bay State games, there's, because I think there's a difference, and this is something that I'm writing down stuff as we're talking, and I keep going back and forth between the concept of club team and then performance pathway, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, because you were talking about, like, I think there's an element to the Bay State games where that's where your club team, the culmination of a club program, and that's specific right now at this moment, probably more to boys in the high school, but I mean, like, I have faith that we're gonna make it better for high school girls and get that a little stronger.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And so, like, I think there's something there where if you make that moment, like, I think it would have to be an earlier tournament to have the NEA come in, because Bay State Games is kind of the culmination of a full summer season. But I think it would still be amazing for a team that's not making it regularly to the finals of a tournament. Say, oh, but our best player got selected to the, like the novelty, like the select side playoff game.
Yeah, well,
Because then it brings all the clubs together to cheer for their best players.
Yep.
the best teams don't necessarily have the best players always as well. So it could be one or two individuals in the team that comes last who comes last because they're part of a program or a team which is brand new, for example. And then they're like, oh, well, we've lost, so I don't want to play this anymore. If there's another carrot out there, then maybe they stay in the game for a bit longer.
Yeah, for sure. And I also really liked your point too. I was thinking a lot about, there are, when I see girls and boys come into our program at the high school, because we train them together for a portion of it, especially at the beginning of the programs, we'll have kids coming in their, sophomore, junior, senior years, having played other sports, and they're going to do something now that's totally new. And they might be way more athletic than the kids that have played, like, out the gate. They're way more athletic than the kids that have played on our team for 3 years. But if I choose as a coach to send just that very athletic kid, like, if I make that kid one of the 5 kids that I sent somewhere, that says a lot to the other 45 girls that I coach. Right?
Oh boy.
Like,
Yeah, that is
that's
heavy, sister. That is just heavy.
So it is really key to me to say, like, hey, everyone go. You haven't played that much rugby? I don't care. Go. Like, give it a shot. Because then, as you pointed out, Rish, like, you're the one that's like, hey, I'm going to make the cut. And it's not me in the home club telling kids what they can and cannot do.
Yeah, and I think that's the important thing, right? Is you are the guys who are impacting the lives of these kids every single day, and having that, like, well, I'm trying to push this place, and then you turn around and say, actually, no, unfortunately, you're not good enough, right? What you can do is go, hey,
Ouch.
look, you can come back next year. Well, let's just work together, and we can come back next year. Or, like, screw those guys. They don't know what they're talking about. We can play the bad cops, and you can play the good cops, and that way, I think everybody wins, because the ones who should be coming through and should be being promoted up are being promoted up. But then there's also the saving face of, well, I didn't nominate you, coach. Why do you hate me, kind of thing.
Yeah.
And also, it takes a lot of pressure off you from a parent point of view as well. Like, oh, well, why is my kid not up there? Why is my kid not up there? Well, I don't know. Go and speak to the Northeast.
Guys,
For
folks,
sure.
folks, comrades, friends, I absolutely love, and I want to linger on this point just a tiny bit more. And I also want to be real about this, because that is as a coach to adults, I have no problem being very real to them. As a coach to college kids, I also had no problem helping but being very real to them. As a coach to youth, it's a very different universe. And I guess I want to ask you, Rish, like, really honestly, because now we're talking about, like, where the rubber meets the pavement, like, real honest dynamics and also logistics. Um, if we, like, I am the coach to a youth club, and I hear that I need to know that there's these opportunities out there that I think these parents and these kids would benefit as human beings, right? So we're talking about, like, a real balance in the universe and in the growth of a person, not just a player. Um, I would love for them to be able to participate, even if they're going to be not selected. So I've participated in select side camps in the past and been a selector in it, and it was a lot of fun. It was very enriching, and yes, it was a little bit tough to be able to say these are the kids that are being selected, and pull the people to pull the coaches together and say I think this person needs to be looked at. Not every coach looked at that player, so they're just going to have to take my word for it. That's very different than a coach whose job it is to be able to nurture, enrich, and foster a love of rugby in the individual kid. So Rish, in a real honest, um, what are the numbers at your camps, and can you actually support an influx of another 25%? Because now coaches are getting the word that you exist, that we should be promoting to you. And not only should we be promoting to you where like a club has not been promoting any players to you, but should be, promoting not just the one or two great players, but the additional two, three, or four other players that are okay, but would just benefit from participating in a selection camp. Because just going to selection camp is so cool, guys. If you've never done it as a coach or player, it is so incredibly cool. So, can you, like, honestly withstand the bandwidth of another 25% if coaches and parents now get on board and start sending kids to you? Rich, is that realistic?
Yes, in short, what I would say is that we have when we do our skill sessions or the ones that Kate sent 20 of her players to, um, that is all about development versus selection. And so, yes, we can accommodate that bandwidth. And one of the reasons is because we want players to continue to get better, right? And one of the ways that you continue to get better is to get extra reps. So think of us as a program which is supplementing what you guys are doing. Um, by adding in another training session. So even if those players are not good enough to play at the elite level, whatever that is to them, them still coming, meeting new people, being in a new environment, learning some new things, being exposed to a different style of coaching or a different player that they're playing with, that's all going to be beneficial. And so when we have these kind of like uh, the player clinics, um, that is something where that is open to everybody. What we would do is when we taper towards a tournament, we would say, right, instead of now, so let's say we'll start 12 weeks out from a tournament. The first 4 weeks is open to everybody. Then we cut down a squad of 25, for example. Then we cut it down again. We cut it down again, and so yes to that because the first 4 weeks would be open to anybody.
Oh, that is just so good, Rich. Man, I am loving this conversation right now. Folks, if coaches, if you've never participated in a selection camp, particularly select side selection camp that day they need to select somebody, volunteer. It is so much fun. It is really neat, and I'm assuming any selection camp out there can always use extra bodies. So reach out and just volunteer for it because it really is an incredible event and situation. Um, so Rich, let's take this down to like a real life situation. So I have a kid. My name is Gabriel, and my kid's name is Gabriel, and I really think if you know him, that he's going to be the next great second row or perhaps eight man. Blindside flanker, I'm not really sure. If we're talking about sevens, definitely in the pack, probably because sevens is a little faster, probably big enough to be a prop. What do I do to get my kid connected with you? What you kept mentioning about you have your pool of players, and then of that, depending on the player selection and the parents' capabilities, you would go on tour, which is a great way of being able to not just build up the players, but to be able to have them play at that next level. So let's say I have my son. My son is Gabriel. He's huge. He's fantastic. I think he's amazing. I think he's going to make it to the next level. What do us as Massachusetts parents need to know to be able to, or coaches need to know to tie in to you, and what is to be expected? What are the steps perhaps for that one player that's going to make, that 0.01% that's going to make it to the Olympics? What does the pathway look like?
Yeah, so I think so. First of all, it would be okay. So we've identified this player. We have a relationship with the coach, with the parent already, so they know the Northeast. When are our open practices, right? So let's say we do 4 weeks in September, where every Monday evening we have training sessions that people travel to, and we coach. What then would happen is if we think they're good enough, they would be selected to that next stage. If we're still looking at them again, we'll give them to the next stage. If we think that they've got USA Rugby potential at this age, we will then contact USA Rugby age grade coaches and say, "Hey, you need to have a look at this kid. This is somebody that you should be looking at. This is somebody that potentially you should be looking at in the next 3 years. It could be looking at something right now." So I'll give you an example. I'm currently coaching an 18-year-old down here in Arkansas with ARPTC, and she's somebody that I've coached before through the All-American program. So I've been coaching her for 2 years at 16. I haven't seen her for a year, and in the last 6 weeks, her development has gone through the roof. And so I was on the call with USA Rugby today, and I was saying, just invite this player to one camp, see where she is, and then we can continue working with her in terms of her development. But we have that connection, we have that understanding of, like when Christy Kirsch first hit the program, hit the rugby scene, first thing I did was pick up the phone and talk to USA Rugby and say, we've got the next player. This is somebody that you need to have a look at right now. And, within 6 months, she had a contract with USA Rugby. So once they're in the system and we think they've got the potential, we have the networks to then go and give them more and more opportunities. Obviously, the competition gets a lot higher. The amount of people around the country are trying to get into these positions, but this is one of the reasons why the NDP, or the National Development Program certification verification is starting into effect, is because USA Rugby don't want to have 100 phone calls of coaches saying, "Hey, I've got a great kid here," and then they turn up and they're not very good.
Oh, that
So
is great insight. Thank you, because we were really wondering where this was all coming from, and you just gave us a big piece to the puzzle. So it's basically it's exactly as you mentioned. They there's only so much bandwidth, and in order to be able to get the most out of it, they need to know that you, Rish, you know what you're talking about. You have what it takes to be able to really identify somebody, as opposed to somebody like me that I think my son is fantastic, so everybody should be looking at them. Okay. Thank you very much. That makes a lot of sense. Sorry, I cut you off, because that's a big piece. That is pretty significant. And all the luck with getting the certification and gold certification, because that's a big thing going on right now, right?
well, we're already grandfathered in.
Oh,
So because
oh, that's great.
we're an Olympic Development Academy already. But we still have to go through the application process, and we still have to do all the paperwork and whatnot.
Hmm.
But I've said to my staff that we don't look at anything else apart from gold. We want to be the only gold in the country, because the amount of work and effort that it takes to get that is going to be very long and hard. But if we get that gold certification, then we become a model for everybody else to look at. But not only that, it's a real trusting program where we know that we're delivering a good product, and we know that people will trust us to send their kids to, and understand that their development is in good hands as well.
That just makes sense. All right, folks. Anything else? We've been at this for for quite a while, and I fear that we could go on forever, because this is extremely exciting. Any more questions, guys?
Yeah. So last last fall when you were doing your the fall invitationals, you did open up one training to all the youth players. The Free Jacks were there. It was an awesome time. It was so much fun. Uh, I hope you're going to be doing something like that again in the future. It was just so awesome, and I think it's really valuable to because apart from just identifying the players, just showing them where they can end up just by association, by that invitation, I think is awesome and valuable. I
Yeah,
want to say thank you for that. That was awesome.
talking about the November 3rd rugby day that we did.
Yeah, it was a great time.
Yeah, so there's like the college tournaments in the morning, and then there was the youth coaching, and then there was the high school program, and then we did one of our elite programs. Is that the one you're talking about?
Yeah, yep, absolutely.
Yeah.
It was a whole day. It was great. It was great to be able to, it was a great invitation, a great open invitation for the youth community. So
Yeah. I mean, that was 12 hours on Pine Banks for me. That was a fun day. But no, we will definitely be doing more stuff like that. With these community development directors that we've got and our managers, we're actually now looking to partner with conferences and things like that around the Northeast, so that we can have more of a presence in these things. So similar to what we're talking about here with the youth, we can start to do it with the colleges as well. So putting those days together where everybody comes together is a really cool way of growing the community.
yeah, I love that. I love it when all levels are accounted for. It's so awesome.
Can I ask two questions?
Sure.
One of them is about I know that there's like the high school program that you guys do in the fall, but then there's also the elite women's. I'm sorry, I'm thinking particularly about high school girls, but there doesn't seem to be like a collegiate Northeast Academy side in the same way that there's the collegiate men's academy side. And I just wondered if that was something that you guys were looking at on the horizon, because I still keep in touch with a lot of my alumni and would like to have them come out. And I'm just not sure if it's like for the women's or if there is also a collegiate side potentially down the line.
Yeah, so we talked about the that men's team being U23 because of the introduction of the MLR. And so what happened then is we didn't need to become the bridge between club and country. We can now become the bridge between club, college, and MLR. So then MLR players can then be developed and they can go to the US from that. So that made complete sense for us. On the women's front, we have had a college team before, but now, as you've heard, we're now looking to go younger and younger and younger in terms of our performance. And I think our average age at Barbados Sevens this year was 21 and a half years old. Maybe a little bit older with D involved there. But we are looking younger and younger, and we are about to reset the button on the cycle. So all those players who are now, 20, 23, 24, 25, unless we really believe that they have a shot in the next 4 years, unfortunately, they're going to be kind of pushed out a little bit because we need to start working on those younger players for the next Olympics, because USA Rugby already have their squad, for Tokyo. So what's after Tokyo? And that's what we need to start to develop.
Okay. So those alumni, those like kids that are coming home for the summer, like they've been through our youth and our high school programs, they should be coming out for that, like, your alpha pack, your beta pack, that elite squad.
Yes.
Okay.
And what I would say as well is that, it's hard to do it with the colleges directly, because a lot of the colleges, if they're in the top level of the colleges anyway, they're not allowed to go and play for these supplemental programs for some reason. Mm-hmm. But there's no reason why somebody who goes to is it Stony Brook up where you guys are?
Maybe. Stonehill, maybe.
Stonehill, that's the one.
Yeah.
There's no reason why. So, one of our players, Hannah McKay, she's been with us for the last 3 years playing college, Northeastern, playing college and playing for the Northeast. They're allowed to do that the Dartmouths, the Quinnipiacs, those kind of things, they're not necessarily allowed to. But yeah, we will be focusing a lot younger on those players.
Awesome. That's great. And my second question, just putting a bug in your ear, really. I put it in the chat, but just to say it out loud, it would be amazing in that like 4-week, clinic system, or once you've made your selection, maybe to think about having, using the fact that you have a squad in New York and a squad in Boston to the benefit of saying like, okay, well, let's have let's meet in the middle and have a tournament in October that's just those couple of teams, so that there's more sevens being played by the Northeast teams than just that one day.
Yeah, we've looked at something like that before, where we'd have a like a Massachusetts team, a Connecticut team, and a New York team, a New Jersey team, and the idea would be that they all go and compete. They train in their own regions, and then they compete at New York Sevens, and we use that as a place where we can then select a true Northeast team, and then go to a Tropical Sevens in Florida, or going out to Utah during the summer months, or going to Vegas, and picking like a first, second, third side to do those things. The troubles is, one is resources, and the second one is like finances, right? So how do we fund 3 teams to go to 4 tournaments within a year? That's going to cost us over $100,000.
Yeah, I don't even mean that. I mean more like, take the kids that are never going to make that squad, never going to go to Florida, right? But are going to show up to training every week at Lincoln Sudbury, and take them to a region where it's only New Jersey, New York, Connecticut, and Massachusetts playing on a random Sunday in Connecticut, just those 4 teams. It's not even a tournament. It's just like it's a scramble between, you know what I mean? If you did that a couple of times, it's, like, you're right, you'd see them playing more, but the amount of skills that they'd get, and they wouldn't have to travel that far.
Yep.
It's kind of sort of like a feeder team to the Northeast Academy, a feeder team from the Northeast. Effectively, that's what it would be doing, because it's Northeast players playing against one another, giving them more exposure and also giving them more experience. But in essence, as you said, it's understood that they're not going to be going to Fiji. They're not going to be going to LA.
They're just training at home. Like it's creating that regional system that you're talking about, but giving them more opportunity to play in front of you, for example.
Well, I would say, what's stopping a team from Massachusetts playing in a tournament in New Jersey?
During the summer, nothing, absolutely nothing. But I meant more like for example, I think for a lot of high school kids, in particular, if you're gonna show up somewhere, right, then you want, like, if you're gonna show up for that clinic, or if you're gonna get selected to the practice squad, there's that sense of like, okay, like, do I get an opportunity to really show why I'm here? And if that, if there's more opportunity to be playing, and not for anything other than the opportunity to go and for the love of rugby, and for the fact that, like, we always talk about how rugby is universal. It's not just about our club. It's about all the people that play rugby across the country, across the globe, right? Like making that relationship, because you're a freshman in high school and you've been selected to that practice squad. You get to go to Connecticut one weekend, but you don't actually get selected for the team that goes to New York Sevens that, 2 weekends down the line. But you've still gotten a chance to play, not just practice, and play against other people.
Kate, I see what you're doing. So at the youth level, we were talking about how we have jamborees, that we could have maybe one coach from the Northeast Academy come and look at these players. What you're talking about is a more formalized Northeast Academy select side interplay. So it's a select side from this area, select side from that area, all playing one another, in effect becoming sort of a jamboree, so that Northeast Academy gets to see these players over and over and over again, knowing full well that they may not be the absolute, best players, but giving everybody an opportunity to be able to both play and giving the Northeast Academy a bigger pool of players that are going to bring themselves over there in order to be able to be looked at, perhaps coached a little bit. Well, yeah, it would be exactly that. It is. It would be to be coached a little bit by the Northeast Academy coaches. Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, because I have to imagine,
Yeah.
and please correct me if I'm wrong, that there is a 7 squad that is doing the same things in New York City or just outside of New York, right? Like in the fall, like a high school team.
Yeah, I mean, there's a whole New York series that happens with
So
high schools.
Yeah, so the idea is putting these teams together that are under the Northeast Academy flag. They're going to pay their own way to show up to Connecticut. They're going to have a jamboree at Connecticut, except that they're at the high school level, so that Rish and company can look at them, and they would be sort of in the player pool, not the selected pool, but the player pool. Is that Kate? Am I
yeah, and
taking?
yeah, absolutely. And maybe, and it's not even that formal. Maybe it's, like they show up, they do a little, like a little practice together, and then there's a game, and then they go and train with, whoever is also, like with the adult side that's training that day in Connecticut. I know that that's more field time, but I also think, that's the kind of thing that's, that you could get a player to pay a little bit for, like
Right.
it's not.
Oh, I love this. Yeah, so, this might be something we need to take offline to talk about, but Rish, would you be able to put, and you don't have to answer this, this is just sort of like if all resources were infinite and you had access to everything, would you be able to put a space together and the players would show up?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's something that we've discussed before. It would be, for me, it would be when in the calendar would that happen?
And
Because
and I would recommend talk to Kate. She has access to a number of coaches and a number of players. This might be the beginnings of something really interesting.
yeah,
Or you can
I
just
mean,
ignore it, but it's an interesting idea.
no. I mean, I like it, right? So, like I said, I like talking about my weaknesses because me being right in the thick of it, I'm not always on the outside looking in, and so being on the inside looking out, we think as though we're doing as much as we can. But then, this is a good suggestion. I mean, I still don't understand quite what you mean, but that's something we can take offline and we can talk with our community directors about. Because if we can offer something where we're doing something more for the players, that's absolutely something that we want to be doing. But I do want to remind us that we are a supplemental program, and we don't want to take anything away from the clubs. So if there was any kind of
Yep.
conflict with, oh, well, do you want to go to the Northeast or to play for your club? We don't want that to happen. So the calendar would be a really important one, and making sure that we're not overloading too much rugby on the players.
Yeah, fair enough. From my perspective, I think that's fair. Totally
Yeah.
fair.
Yeah. As a third party, I'm looking at this and I'm absolutely loving it. If it doesn't happen, that's fine. But Rish, I think you need to put a community organizer to talk to Kate, because
I know
I've
Devin,
seen.
so I could reach out to Devin.
Yeah, this is really exciting. This is really neat, and I'd love to see this happen as it's just part of the larger rugby ecosystem, which would benefit not only Kate the individual players, but the Northeast Academy. All right, so let's shift away from that. This is a fantastic thing. I'm going to be an absolute pain about it, and I'm going to continue to push on this because I think this is really exciting and a really cool thing. It just needs a little bit more definition. Okay, any more questions, folks? I think we're starting to get into the wrap up sections. And now again, at the end of it, at the end of every show, we usually do a shout out or last thoughts or whatever it is. I don't put any frame around it. We usually call it a shout out. We go in order. So Chris would go first, I'd go second, and we go straight down. shout outs, anything that you find interesting, things you can't let go of, whatever it is that you want to do. Any more questions for Rish? We only have him for a couple more minutes. Or who knows, we could continue on forever if we can crack open another beer.
Yeah.
But I think we're getting we're getting long in the tooth on this one. Any more questions for Chris, guys?
Yeah, I do. I want to make sure that we all know Rich is not only the executive director of Northeast Academy, but he also is an affiliation as a director of performance at ARPTC. And I think we need to know, what ARPTC might be able to offer. In particular, Rich, I have on my radar screen residential camps, which of course weren't able to be to occur this year. But that's one thing that's maybe ARPTC offers that Northeast Academy hasn't yet. But you might have some other things on your radar screen that you might want to bring to the coach's attention here about what ARPTC might have in store for us or for our top performers.
Okay, so I love this. Let's just bring it down like a half second. I think we can do this. But for knuckleheads like myself, what is an ARPTC aside from alphabet soup? Can somebody, Rish, if you want to do it, or Chris, if you want to do it, Chris, give us a real
I think
rundown.
Chris is more qualified.
Okay, from like a real knucklehead's perspective, what is it? What does it do? What does it achieve?
Yeah. So ARPTC, otherwise known as American Rugby Pro Training Center, is a national development academy program, just like the Northeast. So they focus only on females and the female development, and they look at their model is different than the Northeast, because at the Northeast we supplement the programs, and so we encourage them to play for their clubs and things like that. At ARPTC, it's a really unique concept in the US where we bring the players in for a 8 to 12 week period and we train them full time. So the players come in. So for example, I'll use this year. What they do is they'll come in. So we had them in from June 1st, and we've been doing post COVID, well, during COVID. So it was 2 sessions a day. And now we're up to 4 and 5 sessions a day of gym, yoga, rugby, technical work, tactical work, gym work, mental skills work, chalkboard stuff. So it's a real full-time professional environment where players are able to really fast forward their development in a very short amount of time. We have right now, obviously because of COVID, we had to cancel our high school program, but we offer the same program to high school players as well, females, from the ages of 15 to 18. So that's ARPTC in a nutshell.
All right. Yeah, I did not want to get into. I don't really need to get any more. I think Daniel is pulling up some information about ARPTC for folks to look at. I just wanted to make sure that we as coaches, parents, and listeners knew what ARPTC was about, and that in fact, Rish, we could reach out to you to talk about those opportunities as well. Is that correct?
Correct. Yeah, I would say the only thing is we are based in Little Rock, Arkansas. Versus the Northeast, which is obviously Northeast based. But the full-time environment is something which is very unique, and definitely something which a lot of people will enjoy if given the opportunity. So, right now we're going to have a fall season for our elite players, for our women, because most of the colleges are still closed, and the people who work remotely and online studying and things like that, they're able to be in this full-time environment and still work and study online, and then also increase their rugby skills and IQ.
Good deal.
That's exciting. All right. If there's no more questions or any other things we want to explore, speak up if you have anything else. Otherwise, I think we can go into the wrapping up of the show. So if there's any, and Shaggy, if you when we get to your wrap up, if you want to talk about any news relating to USA Rugby or Myro, please speak up because I think there's a couple things that were happening there. So let's go ahead and just from the top of the Discord order down, if you have any last words, any shout outs, any mentions, anything of the sort, please, this is the time to do it.
Oh, you want me to go first? I'm at the top of the list, Chris here. I could go on for a long time, Daniel. I'm going to try to keep it brief.
Okay,
First
Chris.
of all, just a little shout out to Daryl, our co-host, who's not here tonight because
Yes.
he's celebrating his 21st birthday.
Happy birthday,
Right?
Daryl.
Happy birthday, Daryl. Somewhere there about. Hey, one thing that thanks, Rich, for coming on. For sure. One thing that I am surprised and super optimistic about is this what I termed as sort of a transformation and a look at youth coming from the Northeast Academy. I was hopeful that you sort of had the infrastructure to become one of those national development programs, and so I was hopeful there. You were way further along than I thought you were, and I'm really hopeful and optimistic that that this is going to be a great opportunity for our players who are who are in high school or even talented players in junior high. I'm really optimistic about this, and it's probably beyond my imagination of where we're headed in Northeast Academy. So super pleasantly surprised about this. Thanks, Rish, for what you're doing, and thanks for coming on and letting us know about it.
Yeah, no problem. And I would say one last thing as well, if time permits. Look, we are expanding. We are expanding fast. We do have a really cool vision in mind of what we want to be. We have the infrastructure in place. We've just hired a business development director to help us raise funds so we can start to do more and more and more of this kind of stuff. But if anybody does want to try and get involved with us and help, help us achieve our mission and really throw out our vision, we would love to, talk and bring more people on if we can in whatever roles it is. If it's helping at a combine, if it's becoming one of our coaches, if it's joining the coach education program, I'll drop my email into the link, and so if anybody wants to do that, we can have chats one-on-one in the near future.
Great.
Fantastic. All right, so I've got two shout outs. One is my 8-year-old who plays for the Barbarians and just made it up to the team that I coach. And unfortunately, we're not playing this season. I had the opportunity to be able to coach both of my boys under the same at the same side, so that's an amazing thing. So Nicholas, very proud of you. You're amazing. You really drive me. So big shout out to you. Making it to 9 years old, the age that I was when I came to the United States. And the second one, which I just realized through the course of this discussion, and this is why I love participating in this, is because I feel that I'm a better person and a better rugger at the end as I was at the very beginning. Shout out to USA Rugby. The accreditation program and dropping the efforts of doing the RTCs, I thought was sort of a cop out, but I realize now that it's actually a really great thing because instead of having one body, doing one function, it's actually lifting, shifting, and dropping that same responsibility, that same task onto the shoulders of people like Rish, to be able to at least for that part of it identify these players and reach out to them. So at first I thought it was a cop out, but now I think it's actually this accreditation program is actually a really neat thing. I'm gonna have to look at it again, reassess how I feel about it, and then get my feelings in line with my brain. So I really appreciate that. Okay, so Kate, you're up. If you want to give some, last thoughts, feelings, that type of stuff, Kate. And Kate might be having some problems with her mic. So, Rish, let's Kate is having mic problems. Rish, let's push it to you. And you know what? I realized I didn't give you the space to just open up the discussion to anything that you feel maybe we didn't hit that you want to highlight. So, if you want to open up the discussion again to anything you want to do, talk about, highlight, make us all aware of, aside from any last minute, any last shout outs, please go ahead.
No, I think first of all, I just want to appreciate you guys inviting me on here to listen to what you guys are doing, and it's always interesting, right? You don't know what you don't know, and so I had no idea that this was a thing, and I think it's an incredible thing you guys are doing here, and I love the community feel already. What I would say is that maybe we can invite Ryan and Devon on in a couple of weeks to talk more about our programming, what we're going to be doing with the Northeast, and how you guys can be directly involved. They're the ones
Absolutely.
who are going to be running the show. Because I
Absolutely.
think, I can sit here and talk about it from a bigger picture point of view, but they're the ones who are going to be in the weeds working with you guys. And I think it would be massively beneficial.
Absolutely. I think that's fantastic. And I think if Kate's mic was working, she would say absolutely yes. Oh, Kate, are you on
Hey,
now? Yeah,
can you
you
guys
are.
hear me?
Yeah, we hear
Okay,
you.
sweet.
Go, go, go.
Sorry. Yeah, this was awesome. My shout out is actually to Northeast Academy. One of the things I really appreciate about the academy as a whole is that it is very it is still a regional program, and I appreciate that it pulls athletes in from the region and develops in this region and isn't pulling talent from all over the country to come into that into that academy, unlike other programs that are around. So I really appreciate it because I think it gives coaches something to buy into and develop a relationship with, and it gives players something to feel proud of and to grow up with. And I think more programs should be doing that. And I'm really proud to continue to push my players to be a part of it.
And Kate, one thing you may not have heard while you were trying to get your headphones and microphone sorted out, Rish mentioned that he enjoyed he actually enjoyed hanging out with us. I think he might have had one too many ales. But if that's
It's
the
a
case,
fun crew.
yeah, he did mention that he would like to have some of his community managers, I think, come back in the future to maybe have more granular discussions um, on some of the things that they can do or looking to do. So it looks like we might have Northeast Academy Part 2, which is fantastic because, as you said, rugby is very provincial, it's very grassroots, and I cannot think of a better way of being able to help rugby than to help an academy that is local to us. So I'm 100% with you, Kate. I learned a lot about this, and I'm loving it. And oh my God, I just realized I'm completely talking myself into a corner and completely just jammering on. So let me shut up. Um, Rish, we cut you off. Is there any last things before Shaggy picks up?
No, I'm all set. I just appreciate the opportunity to talk to you guys.
Absolutely, Shaggy. What's up, buddy?
Hey, all right. So first of all, I want to say thank you to Rish. I really enjoyed hearing from you tonight. I loved hearing above everything else, like the purity of purpose that you're looking for in your coaches and administrators. I think that's uh that's really that's really outstanding and refreshing, and a great way to build a long lasting program. Um, so that's very much appreciated from this point of view. All right, so from a news perspective, something that's going on in Myro that we all should be aware of. Anyone involved in the youth sports, I'm sorry, youth rugby. in Massachusetts is we're transitioning over to Sports Lomo, uh, starting. And we're gonna have a big training call coming up on the 30th. So if anyone hasn't heard about it, or an email was sent out to administrator of every club team, and if you didn't hear about the training call, please try to contact me and I'll fill you in. But the Sports Lomo is a great system, and it's going to really help us out in a lot of areas that have been really screwing us up as administrators of youth sports. Like for instance, we're going to have a bracket program where we don't actually have to scratch together brackets, which is huge. You know, we're gonna have all our registrations gonna be one place. It's an international system, and it's part of, and it was one of the last great things USA Rugby put on the table before the restructure, and I'm so glad it's coming to fruition now. So again, if you guys if anyone in the club community didn't hear about it, just contact me, throw me a message, and I'll get back to you, give you all the information. Um, Okay, and my shout out today is for my Sharks players and coaches who have now usurped the game of baseball. Last week we claimed the game of golf for our own because, as you guys all know, rugby you can't play rugby competitively, but you can play golf competitively in Massachusetts right now, and you can play baseball competitively in Massachusetts right now. So as we're doing our socially distanced training, we're kind of claiming all these other sports, and the kids have been rolling with it, and the coaches have been rolling right along, and it's great. So rugby is taking over all these sports. I'm proud of all these kids.
Agree. Yeah,
I
really
love
great
it.
idea, Shaggy. It's really good fun. The
Love
kids love
it.
it. Rugby golf last week, rugby baseball today. The kids are having a blast. Really creative, well done, and something that maybe other coaches can model after. If you're able to get your teams together and be social distance, we basically the kids played kickball today, essentially with a rugby ball. It was good fun. Well done, Shaggy.
Yeah.
That's fantastic. I love
Awesome.
it. As we know, it's rugby's a community more than just a sport. I can't decide if I'm more in it because of the sport or the community aspect of it. So absolutely love it. Absolutely love it. All right, Skylar, what do you got, kid?
I just have highlights on the New Zealand Super Rugby games this past weekend. So I must say shout out to Jordy Barrett for beating his older brother, and to the Highlanders for an amazing comeback win. His games this weekend were absolutely brilliant. I'm gonna shut my mouth there before I go on a rant about it.
We'll say that for another time. Fantastic, fantastic. All right, folks, it looks like we've reached the end of the show. We were very happy to be able to share all this with you, and we're going to come back next week with another exciting thing, and I think it's going to be in the series of opportunities and pathways for youth rugby to be able to experience the higher level sport. So, from everybody, you guys, shout out to everybody. Just say thank you very much and goodbye, everybody. Good night. Thank you very much. Bye bye.